Hello, welcome to the video today. We're making chicken stock. So I've got my box of chicken bones, or my chicken carcass that I had from the other day. We had a roast on Sunday, so I thought it would be a great idea to show you how to use up your carcass if you have leftover bones, any leftover bits. It's a great way to use that up and minimize your waste. Right, so here we have the bones, just so you can see. And ideally, you want to kind of shred the carcass whilst it's still kind of warm. Make sure that you take all the meat off, have a separate box for the meat that you're going to use and you're going to eat the next couple of days if you have any leftovers, and then keep a separate box for the bones, any discarded pieces. I even kept the bones that were on people's plates. But yeah, you really want to try and keep as many bones as possible because that's going to give your chicken stock the best flavour. Now for the vegetables that we're going to use in the stock and cook down in the stock, I'm going to be using onions. Doesn't really matter if it's red or white. I've got one white one and two smaller red ones. Then I've also got carrots. You can peel them if you want to, but it's completely fine to keep the skin on. You might just want to chop off some of the manky bits if you don't want them in your stock. I've also got a parsnip because we had this left over from the roast as well on Sunday. I probably won't use all of it. I might just chop off the tip in the end just to use. It gives a little bit of sweetness, it's quite nice. I've got some leftover celery, not looking too great, but that doesn't matter. It's still going to produce a good flavour. And then finally, I've got some leeks. Basically what I'm going to do is just chop off the tops because you can still use this in cooking, but you don't really use the tops, so it's good again to minimize the waste. Use the bits that you wouldn't normally cook, use them in the stock. Cool. Don't feel like you have to use exactly what I did. Use whatever you have left over in your fridges and it's still going to taste great. So let's get started. Right, so we're just going to start by putting some foil onto a tray with a wire rack placed on top, and this is going to catch all of the fat that drips off the carcass and save on the washing up. Then get all of your chicken bones and your carcass and place that on top of the wire rack and roast that in the oven for around 30 minutes at 180 degrees Celsius. We'll check back on that in a minute. Now we're just going to chop up your veg into chunks and discard any of the manky bits on the ends. Then just wash off any of the dirt, especially on the leeks on the tops. They often have quite a bit of dirt up there. And I also like to rinse off the carrots, celery and parsnip. Once you've washed off all your veg and patted it dry, we're going to heat up a large pot and put your vegetables into it. Make sure that this is going in dry with no oil, otherwise the oil will come up to the top when we're boiling it and it's just kind of long trying to get rid of it, so definitely leave out the oil. Now your bones should be roasted, so take them out. I could have left these in a little bit longer, but they had enough colour on them, so I was happy to use them. So now back to the veggies. You should start to see that the bottom of the pan is picking up some colour. So now I'm just going to add in some bay leaves and a whole bulb of garlic, just because the garlic cloves were quite small. So crush your garlic cloves lightly, or you could smash them with the butt of your knife like a psycho. I don't actually remember why I did this, but anyway, just leave the skins on and get those in. The veg should be picking up some nice colour now as well. Then we're going to break up your body into chunks, the body of the chicken into chunks, and go in with that along with the bones. Finally, I just added in some peppercorns, and then you go in with 3 litres of water. Now give that a stir and we're going to let that come up to a simmer. You might notice that a bit of scum comes up to the top, but that's completely fine. We're just going to skim that off with a spoon, which you may have to continue to do throughout the process of boiling the stock. And you really want to just take the scum off, try and get as little of the stock as possible. This is how much I took off when I took off the first part of the scum. Once that's at a simmer, we're going to let that simmer for around 2 to 4 hours, and you may need to adjust the temperature just to stop it from coming up to a boil. Now this was about 3 hours in and this is what it was looking like. So I just gave it a taste to see how it was doing, and we're just going to give it the first seasoning. So I like to add a little bit of soy sauce, just a teaspoon, for a bit of extra flavour and colour. Then I'm also going to add in some salt. I added in a teaspoon here, and we're going to let that continue cooking and removing that scum as and when you need to. This was now just under around 4 hours and I was happy with how much it had reduced by. So I'm just going to add a touch more salt, give it another taste until I'm happy, and then you're going to turn off the heat. So I've just turned the heat off on the stock and I'm just going to kind of let it sit there for a bit, let it steep, mainly just because I'm going to have lunch now. I've made a little sort of Nando's chicken rice bowl. So yeah, I'm just going to let that sit for a bit, have my lunch. Probably let that sit for around 15-20 minutes, And then I'm gonna sieve it, strain it, make sure it's nice and clean, and then add the final seasoning. So yeah, I'll see you in that next bit. Right, so on to sieving the stock. I'm using 2 sieves here, one a little bit bigger and then a finer one underneath, just to make sure you catch all of the bits. So slowly drain that into the sieve and then get all of the vegetables onto there. And once you have all the veggies on there, you're really going to want to try and squeeze as much of the liquid out of them as you can to get all of that flavour. And you should be left with a pretty clean stock. Now this is pretty good, it's completely fine if you want to leave it here, but I just like to sieve it one more time just to get it really fine and get rid of any of those little bits that might have not gotten through the first sieving. You can see in the bottom of that pot and in the sieve there some of the finer bits that we missed in the first sieving process. And here it is, the final stock. It's looking pretty good. I gave it a taste, it's really nice. You could almost just drink this as a broth, it's really warming, but I just added in a touch more salt just to get that seasoning perfect for me. And then, yeah, once you're happy with that, we're just going to pour that into containers. Distribute this however you would like. I'm just doing around 200 mils in these smaller containers and then 500 mils in a bigger container. And it's good to do this just so we can freeze it and it keeps for a little bit longer and you can have some available for when you need it. Then just leave them out to cool before putting them in the freezer, and we're going to make sure to label them with the amount of stock that was in each container and the date that you made it, just so you can keep track of it. Now once those have cooled down, we're just going to seal them up, put the labels on, and they're ready to go in the freezer. And if stored correctly, it should last a few months, but it will deteriorate in taste, so try and use it in the first couple of months for the best flavour. Thanks for watching. I'll be showing you how to use the chicken stock in some recipes in the next couple videos.